thank you. Good evening and welcome to the Minerva Theatre. I'm delighted to introduce, two for the price of one. Not only do we have the wonderful director, Rachel Kavanaugh, who is a very welcome returnee to CFT. Many of you will have seen her work here, not least of all An Ideal Husband, but of course the wonderful new music Love Story that was in the Minerva a few years ago. But we also have the superb choreographer, Andrew White of Half A Sixpence, who you will all know from many of the hits from here, which of course includes Singing in the Rain and Barnum and Guys and Dolls.
And 42nd Street.
Yes, exactly. You see, if you had read your programme, you would know. So, Rachel, it is fabulous to have a brand new musical, yet another brand new musical, opening here at CFT. It's become known for that under Jonathan Church and Alan Finch. Of course, it is a musical that people remember. From the 1905 novel by H.G. Wells about Kipps, and then, of course, in the 60s, there was a version, a stage version, and then a film. But this actually is a new version. It isn't just a rerun. So can you tell us a little bit about what it was when Cameron Mackintosh and Jonathan Church came to you and told you a bit about the project and why you wanted to take on what is a huge, huge piece of theatre?
Well, I actually got a sniff of it before Cameron and Jonathan asked me about it, because I know George Stiles and Anthony Drew, and in fact my next show is another musical by them and Julian Fellows, and we've been prepping that. It's a new version of The Wind in the Willows, and they told me that they were doing this new version of Half A Sixpence, and I was a bit like, oh, I want to do that. And I thought, well, they'll never ask me because I'm doing Wind in the Willows. And then Jonathan Church brought Cameron to see my production of Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, which I did last summer at the Open Air Theatre in Regent's Park. And I got this message saying they're standing up at the end, they're standing up and clapping, and they're joining in the standing ovation. I thought, oh, that's very nice. And then the next morning I got a phone call saying, would I come and talk to them about doing Half A Sixpence? And I couldn't believe my luck. And I've been very lucky in my career because as a child, I really, really loved musicals. And this is one of the ones, the film at least, which was part of my sort of the makeup of my childhood, as was Seven Brides, and lots of shows, and The Music Man, which was the first show I did for Jonathan over the road. And I've come to revisit these again in my career, which has been a wonderful thing. This one is different because Julian has written a completely new book for it. So he went back for the novel. There's none of the Beverly Cross book in our show. So our scenes are entirely new. And you'll see in the programme which songs are completely original by George and Ants. But there isn't a song in the show that they haven't sprinkled a bit of magic on or made their own. So even the very famous ones, Flashbang Wallop, She's Too Far Above Me, Half A Sixpence, they're all knitted into a score that we hope has one authorial musical voice.
Yes, because you've kept some of the Henniker music, haven't you?
All the good ones, and there are a lot of good ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, so and those are the iconic numbers for Half A Sixpence that that people know and will want to hear. But we have our own arrangements for them and our own placement of them in the show. So sometimes they're in different places than they would be, they were in the original.
And is this a question when you're doing a new version? Because in the end, it's the H.G. Wells book, it all comes from that. Is that because it's a way of telling a different story? Is it the same story but bringing some of the characters out more and it not being just about Kipps himself? What is it that makes you want to do a new version of something that's quite iconic like this?
Well, I think that the original is attached in spirit both to the period in which it's set but also the period in which it was produced. So it feels very much a product of the 1960s. And we wanted to kind of get rid of that feeling out of our show. So our show is set in 1911. So we brought the period forward just by a few years, just so we're in a society which is even more on the brink of change. And so it has a relevance hopefully for then and for now, but without cutting out that middle period. So it doesn't have a kind of confused aesthetic. Does that make sense?
Yes, totally.
So we wanted to do H.G. Wells' story set in the period it was written for now.
Yes. So it's like that terrible thing when you go and renovate a house and you actually take out of all the 50s stuff.
Exactly.
Because in fact you want the original Edwardian fireplace. So one thing before I bring Andrew in the programme, it's very clear that this has been a long gestation. It was obviously a labour of love. You've talked about Stiles and Drew, who many people will remember, of course, have just done Travels with My Aunt Here very successfully in this theatre. And you have all worked together. Julian Fellows has worked with Cameron and with you. So there's a lot of people involved in the project, even before you get the script through the door. So what is it like as the director coming into something that has been bubbling for all that time? How do you make it your project? And what is it that you then do? Is it the casting? Is it the creative team? You know, what does the director do at the end of that process?
Well,
apart from laugh maniacally.
I do a lot of laughing. I promised Andrew right at the beginning that we would have a laugh. And up to we've only got one more day to go.
Been good so far.
And so we've kept to it so far. But I do what I would always do, in that I would discuss with the producer, in this case producers, so both Chichester and Cameron, the makeup of the creative team. And then I would work with the casting director on the casting, and I would work with the designer on the design of the set, of the scenery and the costumes. So all that would has happened completely as normal. Because of the amazing force of nature that Cameron is, he is more actively involved in those processes than some producers. I mean, most producers are involved in casting, but he, because it was his idea.
Yes, he's credited as co-creator,
exactly.
Isn't he? Yeah.
So he's not a writer, but he has a kind of authorial voice in it. Authorial is not quite right, but in a kind of making, a kind of devising voice in the show. So was very, very interested in the design process. So Paul Brown and I would work on the set, and we'd take him a model at various stages and discuss it with him, and then go away and work on with his notes and work again, all the time doing our notes at the same time. And Cameron came to a lot of the auditions, mainly because I think he was having a very good time, but also because, well, like all producers, he wanted to be there at the final makeup of the company. And he also was in rehearsals quite a bit. Again, having an excellent time. And then would go away and leave us alone to get on with it, and then he'd come back and see it again, which has been a great thing to have him with us on the journey, because then that whole thing of, Cameron's coming to watch a run just didn't happen, because it was normal for him to be around, and so it didn't feel too scary for him to be there. But, I mean, doing a musical is a collaborative adventure anyway, and it just happens that there's sort of more people on this one.
Because I must say, when I looked through the company list, there were the actors on one side of the programme, and then the creative team seemed to go on for 2 more pages, and I thought that's an awful lot of people.
There's a lot of people
to manage for you guys.
On a musical, there are a lot of jobs to do, and on a new musical, there are more jobs to do. I mean, particularly in music. If George wants to write a new bit of music, he will write it or transcribe it. Someone will copy it down, then they'll produce what we call a PV, a piano vocal score of it, so the actors can teach. Then it needs to be arranged, then it needs to be sent to the orchestrator, and then the copyist will copy it from the orchestrator for the band to different band parts. So there's a kind of team of 6 or 8 people just working on the music. And I was saying before, started writing my press night cards over the weekend. I have never written so many cards to people who aren't actors. But that just is the scale of the amount of people, the huge amount of people working on the look of the show, the wigs, the wardrobe, the costume supervisors, design associates.
It is absolutely beautiful. You know, everything about it, the sound design, the light design, the costumes.
You've got 3 sound designers, I think.
Well, but it shows, and I want to come back to some of the things that, without spoiling it for those of you who haven't yet got in, that we will be seeing and they will be seeing later. But Andrew, I do want to bring you in now. One of the things I think most of us who love musicals go for is the big numbers. It's not that we don't like the duets, we do. But it's that sort of da-da thing that we all love. Now, there's some serious da-da things in this show. So really big ensemble numbers. How do you and Rachel work together? Is it you saying, I want to do it in this way, and Rachel saying, well, that's not quite what I want in the tone at this moment? Or do you work all the way together about how you're going to do it?
every job is different. And I think every director has a different stance on choreography. Some just kind of let me get on with it and work in a separate room. Whereas I think with Rachel, straight away, we built a relationship that we created every number together. So there was never any sort of shock moment, I don't think, was there?
Not at all.
And we just, Rachel, obviously quite rightly, wanted the narrative to keep moving the whole time. And I would sort of look at it for lots of those ta-da moments, as you just said.
But it's a technical term, actually.
Technical term, yes, very technical term. But I think we absolutely worked together on all the numbers. It never was. We were never separated.
No, I said to Andrew, you're going to have to. You'll have to sit with me in rehearsals.
That was good.
But I don't think that always happens.
No.
I like to sit in the middle of the room, not in the middle of the room, in the middle of the line, the massive line of people who sit watching the rehearsal next to the choreographer, so we can work together and note together.
And I think you can see the shows, I think, where that perhaps doesn't happen, because some shows, the scene ends and then the numbers start, and it's quite a clunky transition, whereas hopefully with this, it just is one transition.
Well, it seemed, watching it, that it was clear that the movement, as well as the dancing, was part of the narrative. It was the story all the way through that was being told.
Great.
Is that how you think of it?
I'm very glad you think so. That's a good thing. I mean, that's what we set out to achieve, wasn't it? Whilst also achieving those moments that make people go, wow, that was amazing. Because they are important, I think.
And do you ever have, in your minds, when you start, a sense of, we're going to do this sort of number now, because actually where it comes in the show is what we need. We need a big spectacle, or we need something quiet. But then when you've done it and you're watching it, you think, it's not quite right there. How much flexibility do you have to rescore and re-choreograph and change?
Certainly with the placement of the numbers, where they lie in the show, you don't really move those at all. But some of the numbers we have done numerous versions of. And I'll let you decide which ones they are. But
for what reason? Just tease that out a bit.
The narrative mostly.
Or perhaps it doesn't deliver, or doesn't quite deliver on what we set out to do. Some numbers have been reorchestrated because they don't quite match what we've done physically. So this can be a combination of things.
Yeah.
Some numbers you do want, and you never touch it. Like Flashbang Wallop, we haven't really... In fact, we set it very quickly on a Saturday morning, I remember.
And it's still what we set.
And it's still what we set, minus a bit of tweaking.
And sometimes it's to do with the balance of scene and song and dance. So one of the numbers was much more interspersed with scene than it is now. And when we ran that for the first time in rehearsals, we looked at it and we thought, this is just too bitty. And so what we've done now is put nearly all of the scene before the number. Big number that hopefully then delivers and builds to the ending that one would hope for, rather than kind of cut and paste with scenes. So it's those kind of things.
Yeah, but even over previews, we've added some dance music in, and we've extended some numbers because the audience, we felt, didn't quite get the response that we thought it might, and now hopefully it does, and I think it's worked. So,
and presumably you have, the audition process has happened, you've explained that, and all of the audience here often come and they listen to creative people like yourselves talking about this, so they know how that works. But is there, not a frustration, but a strange sort of situation for you, Andrew, if you're suddenly told that actually it turns out we've got 25 brilliant tap dancers, but guess what, none of them can jump? Or what happens if you discover they can't quite do the moves that you need them to do, but they're good at other things?
I always do a very tough audition, and most dancers hate my audition. They have no problem telling me that. Yeah. I think because I don't think there's any point in doing a very simple routine that any of us can do. You have to push them in the audition, and the routine was hard, wasn't it? Yes.
It was great, and Andrew's right, and a little bit of that routine's in the show.
It is.
So you knew the quality already. You weren't working blind, as it were.
No, but there's also the balance of, you can't just have a great dancer who can't act or sing. So there are some people who I adored, but, Rachel...
I was going, no way we're having them.
And, that is fair enough. It's a musical. It's not, it's not a ballet. Yeah. So it's the balance of getting the right people to tell the story. And I think we were always keen that we didn't have a chorus line of people that are identical, that all of our people have characters, have history.
Because everyone has to play a part in this show. Whether you'll see in the programme, everyone is named. It doesn't say ensemble and then a list of chorus people. Everyone speaks. So they all have to be able to carry a part, a spoken text, and they all cover. So they have to be able to act, and obviously they have to be able to hold harmony lines as well in the big numbers and sing and cover solo lines. So they have to be what we call triple threats. But there are some people in the company whose major talent is singing and acting, and there are others whose first talent will be dancing. But everyone has to be good at everything.
Yeah. And with the design, again, without giving anything away, there is a really strong sense of movement all the time. Now, all of us who are passionate CFT people know that the Revolve went in. That was part of the refurbishment, and it gave a lot of opportunity. So you have been able to have whole, totally different sets for different places in the story. Now, is that liberating and exciting, or is that actually quite challenging that you have the drawing room, you have the bar, you have the earlier part, in his younger life, all of those things, and a wonderful bandstand that looks about as bloomin' authentic as any bandstand I've seen from that period. But it's a lot to manage. So can you just say a little bit about that? Because the set is always moving all the time, and that seemed very powerful.
Well, it's both those things you talked about. It is a lot to manage and very, very exciting. It's probably scenically certainly in the top three in terms of size of shows that I've done. It's all automated. So in theory, it doesn't go wrong. What takes the time is programming it. And we had revolves in the rehearsal room. Yeah, not quite as complicated as what we have in the show, because we knew we wouldn't get the show on in time if we couldn't rehearse using a revolve, because we knew it would be an intrinsic part of the way the show was delivered and the way the story was told. And I hope it was always Paul Brown and my aim that we don't just use the set to deliver the scenery or to deliver a scene or a world, but we also use it in a more emotional way of storytelling. So there are moments where we use the revolve to help us show what's going on in Kips's head, and other ways, so that we use it in a number of ways in the show, which I hope it makes different kinds of theatre. It's not just about a sofa coming round or saying we're in a new place now.
Yeah. And for you, Andrew, when you're sort of scoring some of your choreography, as it were, does that change how you block something?
With the revolves?
Yeah.
Of course, yeah. And there's no way we could have done it without them in rehearsals. In one number, we have 3 revolves moving and the dancers crossing, and they're all moving different ways, and the dancers going from one to the other. So there were lots of sort of comical falls at the beginning. But it was actually great because it made you work in a different way. And I think Chichester makes you work in a different way because it's a thrust stage. So all the time we are keeping everything circular and keeping everything moving choreographically, which actually the revolve lends itself very well to that, doesn't it? And only helps, really.
And I think Jonathan said with the first show to have a perfect circle in there, which of course is right, because what is our show called? Half a Sixpence. So it's the same, yeah.
I think that's slightly grasping at straws.
It's very fortuitous. It was all meant.
It was all meant. But there is that, you mentioned that many of the company are relatively new, although there are some great Chichester favourites in the company as well. So that sense of moving from the rehearsal room, even if you have had the revolve in there, to a stage that is as wide as well as now deep at CFT, and you have to act and sing and dance with your back and your shoulders, because often your backdrop is the audience on the other side. How do you manage to take such a big company from the rehearsal room into the theatre? Did you have a lot of time in technical rehearsal, or just is it the previews where it gets tight?
The previews is where it gets tight, because the truth is in technical rehearsals, however much you say to the actors, use it to rehearse, we'll be working on the stuff as well, it is about the set. It's about how we cue something. At what point do we cue the revolve? At what point do we cue a slider? When are you entering? It is what it says on the tin. It is a technical. And you can encourage the actors to work the space, but they get tired. And we had 7 days of tech. It was long. It was really long and hard work. It was great, and we got it done in time, but it was a particularly long tech, and in the end, for them, it becomes about conserving energy and gearing up to the dress rehearsals and the first preview. And it's in this period that we're just coming to the end of now where we really get back to the story and how do we play the space and how do we tell our story in this space.
And suddenly choreography looks very different. They've been in, tights and a leotard for 5 weeks.
Yes.
And suddenly you've got, 6 layers.
And a corset.
And bloomers. And the girls feel they can't move and they're restricted. But Paul is the most brilliant designer and was very gracious in making the costumes very movable for the girls and the men. Yeah. But of course, it takes a while and feels very different suddenly to have quite a fitted jacket on and not be in a pair of tracksuit trousers.
Yes.
So all that takes time to...
So that you can still feel about your interpretation, not whether your buttons have just gone
that's the technical, that's all they think about. And they think, I can't move my arms.
Going to split.
Yes. Whereas now they're suddenly dancing in the costumes how they used to dance in rehearsals. But it always takes time. That's what it is. Yeah.
And one of the things, obviously, that we all know about theatre, and you two are both so experienced, and of course you've been former artistic director of Birmingham Rep, so you've run theatres as well, and you've worked all over the place and in big and small spaces. But we all know that often with theatre, there's an issue about timing. Now, is it too much to suggest that this might be just the right sort of musical that everybody wants at the moment? Because I came out of the theatre just feeling, at last, a bit of joy. Pure and simple. You came out tapping and, wanting to hum along and all of those things. Do you have that sense of the outside world and the inside world of the theatre and how this really might just be the right moment for it?
I don't know. If it is, I couldn't say it was planned. Often in theatre, things land at certain moments due to diaries and when something's ready and when a theatre wants to do it but all I can say is that a number of people have come up to me during and after the show with a sort of this is just what we needed feeling about it. It's been a rough old few weeks globally, and I think there's and I've always said from the beginning of my career there's nothing wrong with a bit of entertainment.
I agree.
If we can make people feel happy, then that's a great thing.
I absolutely totally agree. And I was saying earlier that on Saturday night when I left the show, when I was walking across the car park, there were these two, a man and a lady, dancing to their car. I was like, that's the best. It actually moved me to tears.
Did you sign them up, Andrew, just in case?
Straighten your leg.
Extend.
More.
Yeah, exactly. That's what
and the feeling of joy is a wonderful thing, isn't it? And something that should be celebrated.
Because I saw it last Friday night, and it didn't feel like a preview audience.
Right.
It felt like an audience that were there for the company and people on their feet and a great sort of sense of celebration. CFT is proud of its musicals, I think, and all of them they go. A final question before I throw it out for a few questions to the audience. I mentioned it right at the beginning, kind of to get it out of the way, the original 60s stage version and then the film. They were, straightforwardly a vehicle for Tommy Steele. Watching your new version, it seemed to me that there were many other characters. So it wasn't a single show in quite the same sort of way, that both of the women, the love interest had come up, and some of the class issues in terms of the happiness of the place from which Kipps has come and the place into which he finds himself. Is that right, that there was an active sense of just putting more characters on the stage? You had these inner lives and this sort of hinterland.
Well, you've got it all. That's brilliant.
Excellent.
Julian could have written that. No, but there was definitely a conscious decision. Well, as I said, to go back to the book, and although the book is it's called Kipps, The Story of a Simple Soul, but the movie is Tommy Steele's movie, and I've never seen it on the stage, this show, in any version, but it was plainly Tommy Steele's show. We very much wanted Helen, and indeed her family, to be more than ciphers. I remember from the film, which I didn't watch when I
Helen
got this
is
job.
the middle-class character,
She's sort of filmed through Vaseline, and as I remember. It's all very soft-focused, and she's not really a real person. We've tried to make her a real person. So for Kipps, there is a choice, that there is a proper dilemma about which way is his life going to go. And absolutely, I'm so glad the stuff about New Romney, which is where he's been brought up with his aunt and uncle, reads against, the warmth and simplicity of the world he leaves behind and the confusing sophistication of the class strata that he gets into that sends him literally spinning. And of course, if anyone knows how to write about class, it's Julian Fellowes. And of course, that's why he's the perfect choice for the book of this. And all that detail and all those wonderful little bon mots that we know and love from his TV and film work are absolutely in this. And very economically, because he also knows how to write the book of a musical. He knows that it's not a play with additional songs, that it is something that he and George and Anthony are doing together, and sometimes the songs do it and sometimes the scenes do it.
And one of the things that I had been unaware of was quite how many links there were with H.G. Wells and here, and Sussex, and Midhurst, and where he trained and where he went to school, and all of those things. And I think there was a lovely sense of this being real place, even though this is all set in Kent and Folkestone.
Yeah.
But that sense of these were places that could have been, not this sort of fairy tale musical theatre land. Well, we've got time for some questions. If I could have the house lights up a bit. Who would like to get us going? Thank you very much, Greg, and then lady over here.
Hi, thanks very much. I wonder whether you might to say something a bit about how important historical accuracy is in creating a show that's set in 1911, but bringing it up to date with modern choreography.
Well, that's a tricky one. I mean, when we tell a story through the medium musical theatre, we're not trying with a production like this to recreate something from the past. We're trying to tell a story through the mediums of speech, spoken scenes, song and dance, which is set in a particular time, but might have resonances for us now. It's not a historical document. It's a fable, actually, is what this story is. It's a fable about love and the value of money and the value, in the true sense of that word, of wealth as opposed to poverty, and about trying to be yourself. And so it's about quite big things, but also quite simple things. And so we have to find a way to tell that story which, in as entertaining a way as possible, through the eyes of that young man who, in H.G. Wells, is, as he subtitles the book, is a simple person. And so I think we have license to put in things that might resonate as modern or contemporary, within that, to make it feel like we're not looking at a museum piece.
And I think you have to be. I think we're aware that people are watching it with 2016 eyes, so are expecting, certain elements that wouldn't perhaps have been existed then. But I always try and keep the choreography authentic, whilst knowing that it's a modern audience watching.
Yeah. So they might do things when they dance that you might say, oh, a woman in 1911 wouldn't do that. But a woman in 1911 wouldn't be dancing. Yeah. So we're working in a genre which isn't naturalistic. So it's that jigsaw, really. Because what the dance does is it expresses emotion as well as story. Yeah. And it's an even more heightened genre than singing. So it can never be real or accurate in the same way that if you were watching a documentary it would be.
But that's, building on Greg's point, presumably where the skill of the design comes in, both set and costumes, that those hats are the appropriate hats and the buttons are the all of those sorts of things. So you underpin the history so that you can be free. Yeah. Lady there, thank you.
I wanted to ask about the costume design. I run a small theatrical wardrobe. Were the costumes made on site or were they farmed out? And what is the process between choosing the cast and getting them into the stuff?
Thank you very much.
Well, we choose the cast first, but parallel to that, the costume designer would draw the designs for the costumes. And I have to say they are probably the most beautiful set of costume designs I've ever seen. He's a wonderful drawer, sounds like a mad draftsman, Paul. And he draws the characters. He doesn't draw a blank face with a dress or a suit on it. He draws the characters. And he doesn't, like a lot of designers would do Helen's costumes, but like he did Helen and Anne on a page together, so you could see the difference. And he would do Sid and Kip's, so he was even in the costume designs telling a story by how he put them, what order he put them in, and things. It's a huge show. There's not an unlimited amount of money, so some of the costumes are made and some of them are hired. From Cosprop mainly in London. Most of the principal costumes are made. Also costumes that are particular are made. So costumes that things happen to. I don't want to be too specific about that if you haven't seen the show. But also but a lot of the ensemble costumes are hired because also people are playing multiple roles. I think only 3 actors play one part. Kip's, Anne and Helen. Everyone else, you could spot them. See if you can spot Mrs. Walsingham in another scene or something else.
Yes. The competition backstage about who has the most hats.
I mean, some people are playing 6 or 7 characters. And so, there isn't a budget to make every single one of those costumes. So a lot of them are hired. Luckily, a lot of wonderful shows are set in the Edwardian period. You've got My Fair Lady, Mary Poppins, and many others. So there are costumes about that can be reused and altered and changed for our show.
And one of the things I did notice with the costumes as well that really makes the show so, perfect, everything about it felt perfect, is the colour. There's a great deal of colour that is speaking, the set is speaking to the costumes and backwards and forwards.
Well, there is. I always like working with one designer for set and costumes. Some people don't. In America, often you work with a separate set designer and a separate costume designer, but actually we wanted one vision, exactly, so that when the set is colourful, the costumes are less so, and then the other way around.
Thank you. Another question. Gentleman over there, thank you very much.
Thank you. I was interested in what you were saying about the journey that you've been on and the rehearsal period. And I wonder if you could say a little bit more about how long you've actually had and whether that's typical or whether it's slightly longer because of the complexity of the...
It's actually slightly shorter. It was. We had just under 5 weeks in the rehearsal room. Yes. I mean, to give you an example, on my next show, I've got 6.5 in the room, which is another new musical. It's quite short. It's the same amount they had to do for ACT.
Does that mean
Which didn't feel at all fair to me.
Do you think that means, though, I mean, I want you to carry on answering that, but that you kind of have to hit the ground running?
Yeah,
spend less
and
time.
Thank God, one of the many great things about Andrew is the amount of prep he does, so that you know what you're about to do when you come into the room. I have worked with choreographers who go, let's make it all up now. And there's no time for this. You have to come in. Andrew and his brilliant assistant knew exactly what they were going to do. And I at least knew what I was aiming for in the scenes. It's harder with scenes to say, on that word you'll move there, because it can't quite work like that. But you've got to have what I would call a starter for 10. You can't come in and go, let's just see what happens. It doesn't instill confidence in the actors. And also, I think, there just isn't time for that.
Oh, thank you. Another question. Lady there, thank you very much.
Does that mean there's a huge amount of change in your preview week?
Yes.
Next.
No, there is.
Huge
And a lot of it's to do with the rhythm of the show. Because what happens when you do the technical is you lose the rhythm. You get, if you're lucky, which I think we did get, the rhythm in the final run-through in the rehearsal room. Then you tech it and everything, sometimes it evens out or things get slower that you don't want to be slow because the set's taking too long to get there or the lighting's not right or we've got too much music or not enough music. And so a lot of the work in preview is about orchestrating the rhythm and the structure of the show.
I was just wondering one thing. Is when you're at rehearsal and the two of you are looking at it and deciding what should happen, when's the point that you bring in somebody, or do you, who's never seen the show and actually listen to what they say about maybe the timing, or does that happen?
Well, I suppose that's Cameron, isn't it?
Yes.
He used to come in after us doing a sort of 3-4 days and then give his fresh opinion.
Yeah.
But there's not many people, is there?
No, I mean, and in truth, you've got to hold on to what you want to do with it. There's nothing worse, I find, well, no, there are things worse, but I find it slightly trying when you're doing notes, and we haven't had much of it on this show, because I think everyone knows there's been a lot of opinions to listen to, but that, my mum saw it last night, and she thinks in this scene I should wear a green dress. That's sort of not what you want, really.
Are there any mothers in tonight?
My auntie didn't like the bit when so-and-so did this.
But I think the main person you listen to is the audience in previews.
Exactly.
They absolutely tell you when something doesn't work, don't they?
Yeah, completely. They tell you when you're on it and when you're behind it.
And so we've changed quite a lot of the numbers in previews, haven't we? And therefore, straight away that night after you've done some work, you gauge the applause and the reaction. You think, okay, that works better, so we can leave that.
Yeah.
So I think you're the best.
But how do you know whether they just didn't do it awfully well on that particular occasion, or whether actually fundamentally it's not quite working? How can you
I think
tell?
if it happens more than once.
Right, it's...
and
the audience
you get a
doesn't
kind of nose for that.
You do, yeah.
You get a nose for if they've made mistakes. We'll know if they've made mistakes, or if it's under-energised, or the sound mixer will say, I wasn't getting as much voice from them as normal, so we'd know that maybe they weren't giving as much as they had the night before, or something like that. Or you just feel this isn't right. We need to change this.
There's a weird air in the auditorium when things aren't right. Audience are fidgety. When something's right, people are still and being attentive. So I think,
or tapping.
Or tapping is good. I think if I'm sat in there and people are sort of fidgeting and looking at lights, I'm thinking, this is not good.
Yeah.
We need to
see, they're thinking about the ice cream they're going to buy.
That's not good.
That's never good. Is there another question? Last question. Right, lady there then. Thank you.
Hello. Many of CFT's productions go to the West End. So, number one, who decides if it's going to the West End? When is it decided if it'll go to the West End? And what's the criteria for it to go to the West End?
Thank you. Yes, and no.
Cameron decides whether it will go to the West End. And
so the producer? The
producer will decide. Things will only transfer from a subsidised like this, I'm sure you know this, if a commercial producer is going to take them in partnership with Chichester, but it will take a commercial producer to do that, which obviously is what Cameron is. And it will be dependent on the reception to the show, both by the audiences but also by the critics, as far as I understand it.
Yes.
Yes.
We would like it to go to the West End.
Of course. But we've made it for Chichester.
Yeah.
So that we make it for the thrust stage to be as good as it possibly can be here, because any other way is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Well, I think those of us who have already seen it, I think, would be fairly confident in saying that unless something very bizarre happens, we would very much like to be able to see it more than once. The thing, I suppose, that is particularly wonderful, we've talked about the journey, and that gentleman used the same word. This is the 150th anniversary of H.G. Wells, his birth, and that's a rather wonderful way to honour that and that extraordinary writer, and with his Sussex links. It is a joyous production. We wish you every luck, and the company every luck, for tomorrow night press night. I know that there is something wonderful always about press nights, but also terribly nerve-wracking. But I think the way that the audiences have been responding tells you a great deal about how much fun this show is for everybody. And as you say, everybody dancing off into the car park. And we're all going to be in the car park a long time after the show is ended.
I'm going to be watching tonight.
You're going to be watching it to see. So you don't let him down. Don't let him down. So for now, Rachel Kavanaugh, Andrew Wright, you have been a great pleasure, and best of luck for tomorrow night. And see you again soon, we hope. Ladies and gentlemen, Rachel and Andrew. Thank you.